that Syracuse Basketball has recently offered the number one overall player in the country in the class of 2027. His name is Babatunde Oladotun. He is 6'8", 180 pounds. He is a forward. He is from Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'm going to tell you why that's significant in a second. And as I have mentioned already numerous times, the number one overall player in the country. Now, he has obviously tons of interest elsewhere, and I imagine the interest is going to continue to grow considering he's class of 2027. That is a ways away from ever making an impact in college because it's 2027. We're only in 2024 right now, but it is significant that he is the best player in the country. Teams that have already offered him as well include, but are not limited to, Michigan, Rutgers, USC, UCLA, Tennessee, and West Virginia. So a couple California schools, some Midwest schools. Who knows? It's class of 2027. It's a ways away, but he is the number one player in the country. I mentioned that he is from Silver Spring, Maryland, and I said that that's important, and I am now going to tell you why that's important. In case you are not familiar, there are several recruiting hotbeds for Syracuse basketball. And really, it's two. It's two main hotbeds for Syracuse, one of which is the Northeast, right? So you got the New York kids, New Jersey. I know Matthew Gilhool in the class of 2025, which, by the way, he's going to be cutting down his list very shortly. He is from Philly, so that area, anywhere in the Northeast, Syracuse basketball likes to recruit from there, and it makes sense. Geography, it's close to the school and everything. Makes sense. The other one is Maryland, Virginia, otherwise known as the DMV area. That is where they love to recruit as well. You guys know Donnie Freeman, right? The number 6 overall player in the country in the class of 2024. He's heading to Syracuse, obviously. I can't wait to watch him play, and you should too. He should have high expectations considering what most number 6 overall players are. Donnie Freeman from the DMV area. But it's not just Donnie Freeman in recent times. Judah Mintz is also a DMV guy. He worked out pretty well. Benny Williams, I know it didn't work out, but he was a highly touted prospect from the DMV area. And Woody Newton, I know it didn't work out with him either, but he was a 4-star recruit out of high school from the DMV area. Those are just guys since 2020. You got 4 since 2020 from the DMV area. It's significant that the number 1 overall player in the country is from the DMV area. That's a Syracuse basketball recruiting hotbed. You actually have a chance at landing this kid. Now, having said that, coaches cannot speak to these players directly in the class of 2027 until June 15th of next year. So you're looking at 10 and a half months until Syracuse basketball can directly contact him, or at least the coaches can directly contact him. But it's still important that you show interest early, and why I applaud Syracuse for already extending an offer because, hey, these kids, these highly touted prospects, you want to get in on them as soon as possible. I told you guys the trend that I'm noticing with Syracuse football in the class of 2025 and the class of 26. In the class of 2026, they are getting some of the best players in the country. Not just like, he's one of the best in New York or anything. Like, no. Like Isaiah Williams is a 5-star recruit in football. Demetrius Samuel was a top 80 overall player in the country. And the other kid, Deontay Sheffy, is a running back, a 4-star recruit. Those are some of the best players in the country. The reason why they were able to get those kids in the class of 2026, but haven't gotten them yet in the class of 2025, in my opinion, it's because Syracuse was late to the party for those really, really elite kids in the class of 2025. They were late to the party, and it makes a lot of sense considering they never used to have a seat at the table with Dino Babers. So you get a new coaching staff, and Fran Brown is doing his best, and he's getting a lot of quantity in his recruits. But in terms of the elite players, the point being is that with these ultra elite players in the country, you have to get in on them as soon as possible to try to build that relationship, because there are 2 things that really it's 3 things for recruits when it comes to picking a school. It's comfort, right? Are you comfortable where you're at? It's the relationships that you have built. So that's 2 things already. And number 3, money. Money is obviously important. NIL money talks. Player salaries talk, right? Colleges can now pay players. But you got to build relationships as soon as you possibly can. So at the very least, you can get into the discussion of how much money it's going to take. You have to try to get into the discussion. The only way you can get in discussion is if you build a relationship with, which is exactly what Syracuse basketball is doing with Babatunde Oladotun, the number 1 overall player in the class of 2027. As far as the history of number 1 overall players that have committed to Syracuse, I know 3 off the top of my head. Carmelo Anthony in 2002 was a number 1 overall player in the country. Derek Coleman in 1986, number 1 overall player. And Pearl Washington in 1983 was the number 1 overall player. But that's the only 3 that I know of. There might be more, but at least those 3, Carmelo, Coleman, Pearl, all number 1 overall recruits in their respective high school classes. Now, obviously, it's 2027. The recruiting rankings can change quite a bit recently, or they can change quite a bit. But Syracuse is showing interest for now in the number 1 overall player in the class of 2027. And they have a legitimate chance. He's from the DMV area. It's still a ways away, but from the DMV area, you're showing interest now. You might be able to get yourself a seat at the table come the money discussions and really when the recruitment time really starts to pick up on the class of 2027.